showing now and working. Yeah, perfect. Hello everyone, I'm Bjarnheiður Kristinsdóttir. I'm from Iceland. You can call me Bea, it's easier. So my background is in mathematics and in teaching mathematics at upper secondary school level. And I've been working with Sjolt here in Linz from the start of my PhD. I started my PhD in Iceland in September in 2016. And what I want to present to you today, because I've presented oftentimes a little bit pieces of my monster, is one of the research project's goals, which is to define what a silent video task is, and also to make more precise the process of assigning a silent video task. So first, I have to show you what is a silent video task, or what's a silent video of this place. So silent video is always short. It has no text, no words, no sound whatsoever. It's short in the sense it's only maximum 2 to 3 minutes long. It's animated, it has focus on one mathematical subject, and the student gets the task to add the voice over to the video. So they have to be the narrative. It has to be contain a clear theme, and a potential to assess the conceptual understanding of the students. And with an opportunity to be creative, that's important too. So an example of what's not suitable for a silent video task would be something linear like this, where a teacher is showing how to solve a task in what he or she thinks is the best manner. So that's not suitable, even though it's without sound or text. Well, mathematical signs obviously are allowed. It's not very suitable for a silent video task. So I'm showing you one example, one recent example, not from my study here. And as you can see, there is no text, there's no sound, and you can just, now I allow you to imagine how would you add your voiceover to this video. You can also try to bear in mind what could students miss, what would they pay attention to, what would they notice, and how would you try to use this in your classroom later on. There's solutions. So it can be, for instance, proofs without words. It can be definitions. In my own research project, I used a different video from this one, concentrating on the unit circle. And it can be some conditions in mathematics, generalizations. The reason I chose this is because I wanted to link to Diego's presentation later on. He will explain later. So this process of assigning a silent video task, at the start of my PhD studies, I already had some slight idea of what to do. The reason for this was that the silent video tasks were developed and made in a Nordic GeoGebra working group that I participated in as a teacher. And I worked there with researchers and teachers from 7 different countries, and we tried out silent video tasks in 5 of these countries. After I came to Linz, I continued the work and started preparing my research that I wanted to do in Iceland. In Iceland, I worked with 4 teachers in different upper secondary schools, and they're 17-year-old students. So I present the process because I went quickly. So the teacher presents the video to the whole group. Then the students get into groups of 2 where they discuss and decide on how to make their voiceover to the video. They hand in the recording to the teacher, and the teacher in turn will listen to all those solutions and prepare a follow-up lesson. In the follow-up lesson, the different solutions get discussed, and this part especially developed throughout the process. So I decided to interview the teachers before they assigned the silent video task after they assigned it, and also after the follow-up lesson. And as you could see in Johanna's presentation today, she had this live session. This is not completely live because you can't listen to all of the students at the same time, but still it's directly in the follow-up lesson that you discuss the solutions of the students. And I also had some questionnaires for the students to inform the interviews. I worked with the teachers partly parallel, and what I did with the first teacher, of course, influenced what I did with the other teachers. So all teachers were aware of that we are developing the task and trying to make the process as good as possible. And not only did the task develop with the teachers, but also in the analysis process afterwards. You can see here, I collected my data in 2017. In January 2018, I had an idea. Then after analyzing the transcript data, I found new approaches, and so on. So I'm still developing. I want to share with you a few results because I don't have so much time. But it's important in order to keep the task open to not hand out any list of concepts for students to cover. And if it's difficult to start, it might be useful to ask them to draft a script on a board. And to bear in mind that their solution might help others later on. So some items that follow the thinking classroom, Peter Liljedahl in Canada has been researching this recently, might help. And this came out very clear from my data, that it's open task, gives short oral instructions, assign the groups visually randomly, use vertical non-permanent surfaces for your script drafting, and have a flexible organization of the room. That's very important to support the task. And what has this to do with creativity? Is it okay at the time? Yeah? Okay. Oh, really? I'm ahead of time. so the students get an opportunity to think outside the box, and to discuss mathematics, and in some cases, at least in Iceland, where the teachers are rather the transmittive type of teachers. They were not used to discussions, they were afraid of it, they were afraid of the technology, and one of the major results of my research is that actually it came out to be easy to implement the task, and the discussions went smoothly despite the fact that the students weren't very used to discussing. They got to explain and describe in their own words and listen to different approaches. And that was a key also, because at the start of my research, I thought, oh, maybe they will always be able to do what I was able to do in my experiment back in the time I did the Nordic experiment, because then I was able to take a sequence of different solutions and bridge from a more daily language to more mathematical language. And in this way, I was thinking to maybe give access to those students that only possess the daily life language and give them some kind of a staircase to the more mathematical language. But this is not always the case. So in this case, the teachers I worked with, they actually sometimes just asked the students to give volunteers to check out different solutions. And they discussed also different precision of language use. And there's no right solution, so that's also a big plus. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have some questions. I have some more slides to explain better if anything was unclear. Thank you.
Some questions? And then it looks that it's such a very innocent task, a 30-second video, a 1-minute video, can be used in so many different ways to trigger teachers and students' attention. So it just grew all the time. So whenever we present it, it's just becoming more and more interesting in many different ways. And it's connected to flipped classroom. It can be connected to other kinds of technologies as well. So
it's also connected to assessment because it's really important. Well, maybe that aspect is also important to tell. Formative assessment, this is a very useful tool for that. And also, I have to say, since I started this, I was using this in upper secondary school, but many people I've communicated with in conferences ever since, they've used it with their teachers in training. So it's a very useful tool for those giving training to upcoming teachers and teachers that are now working in service teachers.
And how do you use it in assessment?
In the formative assessment, I use it to actually get into the student's mind. No, not to. Now I'm not explaining it well enough. But because I get to know what they are thinking, I can better see if they really understood the concepts they are working on. So in some cases, I would have very procedural tests, and the students were doing very well on these tests. But when answering a task like this, the results were catastrophical. And then I had the information, okay, this student might be just acting like a parrot, let's say, and I really need to slow down. So it gave me, as a teacher, some information. It also gave me, in another example, it gave me information about students that I hadn't really paid so much attention to. They were being quiet in their corner. They didn't do very well on tests, but not too badly either. But actually, the reason they were doing not the top scores on tests was because they were bored by the tests. And they actually would have liked to progress further, and they had already quite good understanding of what we were doing. It was merely the mistakes they were doing. Afterwards, I checked their tests. Mistakes they were doing were rather in the type of, I did it too quickly, and I didn't bother to check my result afterwards.